Hi. Okay. So, as promised, here are the stories. Here's the story of my life. But I'm going to start with the stories of my grandparents from Italy. Okay? So, I'm going to go back to my grandparents are from Cosenza, Calabria. My grandmother, her maiden name is Rose Santoro. Santoro. My grandfather is Scornianchi, but when you see my grandfather's immigration papers, his name is Scornianghi, and all his friends from Italy always called him Scorniang. Yo, Scorniang. But when he came to Ellis Island in 1922, they changed his name to Scornianchi, and so that's why going forward they're all Scornianchis. Okay. But let me just start at the beginning of the story as I know it. Again, these are my maternal grandparents, okay? And here's the stories as told to me by my grandmother, okay? So my grandfather was born in 1899 in Cosenza, and my grandmother in 1900. Somewhere around 1915 is when they started their dating, I want to say. Or their whatever that they did in 1915 in Italy. But at any rate, she would tell her stories. And she said they would go on dates, they would walk. They would go for walks with the family trailing behind them. And there is a part in one of the Godfathers where Al Pacino is doing exactly that with the woman that he had married, the Italian woman at first. And they're walking, and the family's all walking behind them. And this is true. I mean, it was so hilarious. My grandmother had told me this. Then she used to tell me that they would sit at the table with family, of course, and they would not sit next to each other. They would sit across from each other. And the family, my grandmother and my grandfather would make eyes at each other, she said. And I was like, I couldn't imagine, what do you mean make eyes? But I would imagine this like, it was like hilarious. But she was very happy to tell me these stories. Then when they were like engaged to be married, and they were, I guess, going to be married soon, my grandfather tried to kiss my grandmother, and she was like, oh, no, you can't kiss me until we're married. And she's very proud of the fact that he did not kiss her until they were married. It's so cute. I just want to show you a few momentums. I have a lot of my grandmother, my grandfather, my parents. I have a lot of the jewelry. But I just want to share a few things with you. This was originally her wedding earrings that she gave me when I first got my ears pierced when I was like 11, which is stupid. And really? And of course I came home from school, I lost one of grandmom's earrings. My mother took the other earring, put it away, and she had it reset into a ring for me when I think I want to say somewhere around Christmas when I was like 25. See, that's a little diamond in the middle. And so that's my grandmother's wedding earring, and this is all her her 18 karat and 22 karat jewelry from her wedding trousseau. So it's all like between 1915 and 1920. So it's all like 100 years old. And then these are another part of her trousseau, which were her little ruby earrings and a ruby ring. She had her ruby ring. There's the ruby ring. And then my grandfather always, I actually had my grandfather's ring. My grandfather, when I was little, I remember used to wear this on his pinky. And I've had it sized over the years. And it was engraved with his name, Francesco Giuseppe Scornianchi or Scorniang. And it was, of course, like almost off. And then when I had it resized and when I inherited it, I had it totally re-engraved with his name again, Francesco Giuseppe Scornianghi. Okay. And now he had another ring. He only had 2 rings to my knowledge, which was a ruby ring because he was July. He was born in July. He was a Cancer. This was the ring, and I had it set into a necklace. So that's a ruby. You see how I took that part of it, and then the rest of it is the necklace. I wanted to keep that detail. Again, 18 karat gold. And here's the best. The best is, and I have others, but this is something really special. This is my grandmother's locket. Now, it did not come on this chain. This chain is actually either from something else from Italy. I don't think so, but I think it's from Brazil. It's 18 karat gold. And look inside. It's got my grandfather's picture. A locket with my grandfather's picture. Isn't that too precious? And she said that she put his picture in it. Well, actually, it was part of her wedding jewelry. Okay, so after they got married, they had my Uncle Joe, little baby, and they decided there was no work in Italy at that time. It was difficult times. It was after World War I. So my great Aunt Mary, my grandfather's sister, had already immigrated to the United States, and they had some relatives also on my grandfather's side, on the Scordianchi side, already living in White Plains, New York. So, or Rye, New York, somewhere up there in Westchester County. But at any rate, what they did was, what my grandfather did was he came ahead. He said, I'll come, that was 1922, I'll go to the United States, I'll get us situated and set up and send you and the baby passage to come after me. And usually that meant several years. Well, my grandfather must have had a good time during the Roaring '20s, because he didn't send for them. They didn't come until 1929. Unfortunately, the spring, I think it was before the stock market crash, so the end of the heyday of the 1920s. But it's a sad story. My grandmother was telling me that when she was getting ready to leave, her and my uncle at that point was 7 years old and had never met his father, had never met my grandfather. And she told me that her mother, my great-grandmother, said to her, I'm never going to see you again. I know I'm never going to see you again. And if I remember right, all of my grandmother's brothers died in the war. I don't think there might have been, I think everybody died. They died either in the war or in the Spanish influenza, which the pandemic we're going through. Some of them died in the war, some of them might have died in the influenza, but I think my grandmother was the only one left, and she was leaving. And my great-grandmother said, I know I will never see you again. My great-grandmother died the day before my grandmother was set to sail for the United States. It's sad, isn't it? It's sad. And I remember my grandmother saying that when they buried her in Italy at that time, not only wearing black, but you mourned by screaming, scratching your face and pulling out all your hair and throwing it on the coffin. And they wouldn't let her do that because they said, no, you're setting sail tomorrow. You can't go scratched up with your hair all, And so she wasn't allowed to mourn properly. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that little story in. Anyway, my grandmother and my uncle, they didn't come steerage or anything like that. She said they had a nice cabin, they would go and eat. And a story she always told me that is another one of those emotional stories so near and dear to my heart is when they called them up on deck because they were arriving into New York Harbor. And this is 1929 again. And my grandmother, told us they were to come and see the Statue of Liberty and the new land. And, she went up on deck and there it was. And she always told me how incredible it was seeing New York Harbor for the first time in the Statue of Liberty. And till today, I look at the Statue of Liberty and I think of when my grandmother and my grandfather came here and what it meant to them to see the statue for the first time and to see their new country and my home, New York. Okay, I'm going to stop there and we're all going to take a breather, and we'll continue with when she first got to the United States and landed here on soil. Okay, bye.